process of kind of putting together a home gym.
Age is like 103.
Stuff like that. So it was just nice to actually sleep until 7 o'clock in my own bed.
Another
Is
contract.
pretty exciting stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, followed by a
You
procedure.
kind of hate to think that that's
Followed
really
by
like
a
this
contract.
heavy cup when you can be excited about like I'm not gonna set an alarm.
Which wasn't that late.
All right, Amanda. You guys are ready. Dan, you ready? Okay. All right, I'm going to call the Village Board of Oregon for Monday, February 21st, 2022 to order. Candy, roll call, please.
Here.
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 Here. Here.
Okay. All right, we'll go to 3 already. Approval of February 7th, 2022 Village Board meeting minutes. I'll take a motion in a second. One from Derek and Luke. Any discussion? All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. 4 public appearances. First is public comment. This part of the agenda allows members of the public to provide information to the village board, including items both on and off the agenda. Anybody from the public here to speak? Not seeing anyone. Okay, we'll go to 4B. Request from 14 South Artists Incorporated to lease space in the Oregon Welcome Center, and I think Francine Tompkins is here. So Francine, if you could just state your name and your address for us, be perfect.
Francine Tompkins, 975 Flint Road.
So if you just want to dive in, Francine, what you're here to ask us for?
All right, thanks. Well, I'd like to thank all of you for time on the agenda to present this proposal. I am currently the president of 14 South Artists. Some of you may be familiar with the organization. It started in Oregon in 2004. It was a small association. And since then, we've grown considerably. We have about 50 members, and we're currently a 504c3 corporation. I haven't done a presentation in a long time. I'm a retired educator, and I can't believe I'm actually a little nervous about it. So that's a good thing, I think. So over the years, we've really had a lot of involvement in the village. We have volunteered for events. I think it was in 2020, we worked one of the library fundraisers. We've also presented last year, we attended the 2021 9/11 event, and we had an opportunity to meet with a lot of the members in the community. We probably most recently have been the most involved in a gallery presentation at the Firefly Cafe. We do that every year, November and December, those full months, and that really provides a great opportunity for our artists to present their art and for us to interact with the community members. Last year, after meeting and talking with Randy, we had an opportunity to collaborate and created 2 pop-up events, sales events at the Welcome Center. One was in June, and the other was around the holidays in December. And I'm still, when I think back about that, I'm still amazed at the turnout from the community and the artists. In June, we had 7 artists that displayed and were present in the Welcome Center. And at the holidays, we had 6 artists, and we also had a silent auction, which raised money to support 14 South educational programs, as well as the Village of Oregon Public Art Project. I loved that spot. Our artists loved it. We don't refer to it as small, we refer to it as intimate. It really provided a lot of opportunity for us to talk to the community members that came in there and I was surprised at how many people showed up. Those were one-day events. We didn't count the number of people, but I think not just people coming in to see what we were doing, but having an opportunity to interact about our art and to talk with them about their interest in art. That got me and some other members of our board interested in the notion of having a permanent physical presence in the village. And we know that that's probably going to be a long-term effort to look at a spot, but in the short term, we'd be really interested in the opportunity to lease the space in the Welcome Center. Again, it's small, but it really provided a great setting for us. We think we'd be able to expand on the pop-up sales we've done and probably even offer some small classes, an opportunity to talk more with the people in the community about the arts, excuse me, and the impact that the arts have on the wellness of the community. Our mission in our organization is to promote the social welfare of the community by advocating for the visual arts. And as I was reading through the village website, I learned that one of your priorities is to promote the downtown as a community gathering spot. I think these are two very highly compatible goals, and we really would look forward to the opportunity to pursue those with you. I'm glad to answer any questions or take comments from you, and that's the end of my overview.
Well, here, I'll just say, since I kind of the official curator of the Welcome Center since, like, I don't know, 2014 or whatever, as many of you know, the Welcome Center's been sort of vacant. We were lucky enough to have seniors in the summertime to meet people on the weekends, but since, a couple of years now, it's been vacant. So, from my perspective, this is a great way to use the Welcome Center. I think it's a great thing for downtown, promoting the arts, and to get use out of it. So, I like the idea. I don't know how other people feel. Yeah, Amanda.
I think it's a great idea. It's not really being used too much now. It
Right.
makes sense to do this. It'd be nice if you, I don't know how much your group could afford if we did a little bit of a lease, but, it'd be nice to offset some of the costs, at least, that the village has for the heat and for the whatever that goes into that, but we can negotiate.
So Amanda, one of the things the utilities is about $100 was in our packet, and I just floated $200 a month. That would sort of handle that, and if there's any sort of, we get the furnace and the air conditioning tuned up, that would sort of help some of that. And I don't think and Francine didn't think that was an exorbitant amount of money.
We're applying for a grant. It's the Main Street, and I'm, of course, not going to remember the name of it, bounce back grants. So I think for us, the lease would really need to be contingent that we would get those dollars. If not, we'd have to look for some sponsorship. I think that's a very fair amount. It looks like there's dollars not only to support the lease, but for us to do some advertising, to be able to really promote. It doesn't do any good to be there. People don't know what's going on. So that's something that we're used to doing, and I think that's even built into the cost. So my understanding of the process is that if indeed the board approves that, we would then have a lease drawn up, and there's a letter of intention that we have to fill out along with some legal papers.
Okay, others? So, Francine, would you want us to approve a contingent on the getting the grant?
I think we would need to do that. It would make me pretty nervous about where our money would come from. As I said, I think the $200 is really fair, but we don't have that kind of money in our budget. Hopefully sometime we'll be able to
Yeah.
look for something long-term.
Jeff, you got something?
I just, two comments. One is, does your entity carry insurance?
Yes, we have insurance. I don't know, I'd have to check with our insurer. We have a variety, when we do fairs, things like that, that it would cover if there was any injury, somebody
Right, so
tripped
we
and
would
fell.
just ask that the village be listed as an additional insured
Yeah,
on
I will,
that, or that would be our request.
And we have it on there too, right, Jeff?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, but typically in
Yep.
a situation like that, we ask them to provide us a certificate of insurance and then list, as well as listing us as additional insured
Sure.
on that.
sure.
And then secondly, just, that you understand that it's not an ADA building. I mean, it has obviously a big steel beam right through the center of it. and-
Right.
And everything, and that's, as long as you're aware of that, and, I mean, you've obviously been out there, so.
Right, we are, and I was amazed at, how many people are willing to walk over that step.
Exactly, you know, it's not a big deal, it's just
Yeah,
as long as.
thanks for the handrail, that was
Right.
really helpful.
and we tried to come up with different solutions. I think we've done 3 or 4 different ones. I think, Francine, you talked about maybe a ramp or something now, or something maybe different.
Right, we did have, the husband of one of our members built, a step in there that is, it's not permanently attached, but it fit
Yeah.
underneath so it wouldn't move. And at our holiday event, there happened to be a couple of engineers that spent quite a bit of time just staring at that.
Okay,
So I'm
good.
guessing they may have some ideas. Of course, the issue is, anything that's built can't really come back too much into the building. We need that
Right.
space to walk around. So it is a,
Okay, yeah, I just wanted to make sure that that's
yes.
clear, that we know
yes.
it's an old historic structure that, yeah. does
And
not-
we were also very fortunate to get in touch with, and I'm sorry, I can't remember her last name, Alice, who owns a building next door, who allowed us to use the bathroom.
Okay.
So
Okay.
that was
And-
very helpful.
Anybody else, comments or questions for Francine? I mean, if we think it's a,
It's like a win-win.
yeah, does somebody want to make a motion? Yeah, Jerry?
I'll make that motion.
All right, 2.
So, this time, we would just need direction to have the village attorney draft the lease agreement.
Okay, but you want a motion?
Yep, that'd be
Yeah,
great.
To draft a lease. Okay, so Jerry made the motion. Carleen, I saw Carleen's hand. Any other discussion? All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, Francine,
Thank you very
Yeah,
much.
thanks.
It's very exciting. Can't wait to see you all there.
Yeah.
Thank you, Randy and Martin, for helping us.
you bet. So we'll go to 4C, presentation from Friends of Badfish Creek Watershed, and I think Andy and his friend is gonna, if you both can introduce yourself to us, that would be great.
Yep, thank you. Many of you know me. We've gotten to know each other a lot more over the last year. My name is Andy Herneman. I live at 375 Ash Street here in the village, and with me tonight is,
My name is Lynn Dybel. I live at 316 Grant in Stoughton.
Lynn is the de facto director of our Friends of Badfish Creek Watershed group. We put together a little PowerPoint presentation. We'll try to keep it quick here. I know you guys have a full agenda, so I do appreciate you guys giving us some time here, so.
Yes, I'd like to second that. Thank you very much for offering to put us on the agenda.
We're gonna start with a little bit of history, what makes up our group, and then we'll get into some of the projects. So, Friends of Badfish Creek Watershed, we were the first chapter of the Rock River Coalition. So the Rock River Coalition oversees the larger Rock River watershed. Badfish Creek, obviously, we are sitting right in the Badfish Creek watershed. All the water from Lake Barney, all the water from the west side of the village flows, into the village, flows underneath Brook Street, comes out by the wastewater plant and kind of continues its way outside of town. So we were formed in 2008. Our mission was to educate ourselves and others about Badfish Creek and its watershed, and to work in partnership to improve the riparian habitat and water quality, and to encourage land use policies that protect the creek. So one of the things you'll notice that if you ever cross a bridge on Badfish Creek, the water very rarely ever freezes. The closer you get down to the confluence with the Yahara River, that's the best chance you'll have for it to freeze. You can see a couple pictures here. The first one is me in my canoe. I think that was last February. You can still see the snow on the banks. In fact, I was out paddling yesterday afternoon, and there were, I think, 8 other people on the water, that we had counted. You can see on the bottom of the slide here, From the middle of March to the end of last year, we have a trail camera that's located just downstream of one of the popular canoe landings. We had over 1,500 people and 1,400 different boats that traveled through that time. We know that that's an undercount. We can't get everybody on there, you know, whether it's not being able to take pictures fast enough or our batteries on our camera dying. But we just kind of use that as some general data to say that people are using this creek. Then, yep. The next thing we have on here, I put together an interactive paddling map using Google Maps. You can, I think the link is not showing up right now, but it's in your packet as well. But you can click on all the entry points. Yep. You can click on all the segments. You can click on all the put in, take out points. It gives you some information where, you know, what's the best side of the road to access that site from, where you can park your cars. There's a lot of pictures on there. And if there's any deadfall or anything that we come across, we usually try to put that on there as well. I think we've had, I can't see the number up there, but it's somewhere, you know, in the 16,000 views on that in the few years that we've had that. Go ahead, Jeff. The main point of this presentation, we're going to get to here in a second, but it's talking about the projects that we do. So in order to promote the watershed and everything that's going in there, education is a big aspect for us. We try to do public programs. We participated in the National Night Out here in the village last summer. It was a lot of fun talking to people, letting them know that they can paddle Badfish Creek. We've done some work study days with Stoughton High School. We developed a new canoe landing site down off of Old Stage Road, closer to Cooksville. In the DNR land, we will do Natural Resource Foundation trips where we'll guide people down the creek as part of the education outreach for them. Then, like I said, some of the projects we do stream clearing. So if there's any trees that come down that are impeding traffic through the creek or the flow of water, we'll get out and clear those as best we can. You can kind of see the picture there that we had a tree blocking the entire creek. You couldn't get through it, so we had 4 people out there, and in a couple hours we had that cleared. You know, we don't take everything out of the creek. We still leave some of the material there. Obviously, there is habitat. There's plenty of fish that go through there, and we do, you know, aquatic invasive species removal. We'll do highway cleanup. We have a stretch of highway south of Stoughton on Highway 138 going down to Cooksville that will pick that up every, you know, twice a year. And the big thing here is the water quality monitoring, which we're going to get into in the next slide. So.
Okay, the E. coli that you see in the picture there is an inflatable, but that gives you an idea of what kind of an organism it is. It's not very nice, and it can cause a lot of trouble if people ingest it. Now, there are 2 possible sources in a stream like the Badfish, and one of them is that effluent is released into the creek, and the other is that sometimes animal manure is run off into the creek. And so our job as part of this project was to determine which the E. coli source was that it was coming from. Really important point on here is that health departments in Wisconsin close beaches on water with E. coli levels above 1,000. So just keep that number in your mind.
So again, why this is important, why Lynn mentioned the whole effluent, is all of Oregon's wastewater gets cycled through the wastewater facility here on the east side of town, and the treated wastewater from there goes into the Oregon branch and then flows. It meets up with the effluent ditch from most of Madison's wastewater, comes from the Nine Springs plant, goes underground for 5 miles and up, just upstream of Highway B. There's the outfall there where the pipe is, and then it starts the ditch coming through. So probably by the time you get down to Cooksville, over 50% of the water that is flowing in the creek is treated wastewater.
Okay, so what we're after is to have this be a safe place for people to paddle. And the majority of the paddlers are from this area, but some people come up from Illinois, from the Chicago area, specifically to take a trip on the Badfish. And the reason is that it's a beautiful creek. If you have not paddled it, how many of you, just show of hands, how many of you have paddled the creek?
Part of it.
Part of it.
Part of it, yeah.
And if anyone wants to go out and paddle it, let me know, and
Yeah.
we can take you there.
We'll arrange it. Has a remote feeling and a lot of wildlife, and it feels like an escape. So it's been a very popular destination, and especially during the pandemic, it really kicked in. So we want it to be safe.
Go ahead, Jeff.
Next one?
Yeah, so we have Rick Wiederson, who got us started on this, is in the audience here. Rick, raise your hand. Rick Wiederson is with Rock County Public Health, and they do an annual, because the Badfish runs into the Yahara, which is, and the lower half of the Badfish is in Rock County, and they do testing on both the Badfish and the Yahara. And so they do a semi-annual test that shows what the E. coli levels are. And you can see on your chart that the E. coli in the Badfish is pretty high as compared to the Yahara. Okay, so this next one is an average summer versus winter over 6 years, showing even a greater discrepancy. Next, please. And then what we did was we worked out a testing protocol to determine what the levels were all along the Badfish to try to figure out where the E. coli were coming from.
Yeah. So on this chart, you'll see at the bottom of it, there's 7 sites along the creek. The Highway B is up at just by the outfall from MMSD. We have a point right at Perry Parkway at the outfall on the Oregon branch here in town. We have County Road A, where that's where the effluent ditch, the Oregon branch meets the effluent ditch, and then that goes down and meets the Rutland branch. So that's the official start of Badfish Creek. We go down to Lidle Mill Road. That's a point source right after Frog Pond Creek comes in. Highway 138 in Cooksville, it's right after Spring Creek comes in. We have the Yahara at Stevensville, and the Yahara, that's upstream of the confluence with the Badfish, and then the Yahara down at Merwin County Park, which is after all the water kind of meets together. So the reason we have all those different points is we wanted to see, is one thing contributing more to the high E. coli levels than something else? So if we found all of a sudden there was a higher number at Lidle Mill Road, we would know something's coming in probably from Frog Pond Creek or somewhere, in between there and any points farther upstream. So we're trying to use those points to figure out, if we had any, high source loads.
Especially agricultural possibilities with ruminants. If you take a look at this graph, though, you'll see that the dark orange line, that's Oregon, and the levels are the highest for Oregon, and this is a whole 2-year sampling.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yeah,
Sure.
go ahead.
Where's that Oregon point again? I missed what you
It's
said.
right at the new bridge that they put in on Perry Parkway by the ice arena.
Okay,
just
thank you.
right after where the outfall is from the wastewater plant.
Thank you.
So one thing to note, I think we have it on one of the slides too, is that Madison Metropolitan Sewerage District, they have a UV treatment point. They have a period for their wastewater to kind of counter some of this E. coli. Stoughton has the same thing. Oregon, the permit doesn't cover that, and we'll be talking about that as well.
Okay, so, yeah, and there we have it. So the MMSD has had UV since 1986, and their permit, when it was renewed in 2019, upped their disinfection period from 6 months to 9 months, effective March 1st of this year. Stoughton's permit requires it May 1st to October 31st, which is 6 months. And Oregon has a variance, which means no disinfection is required. And this is based on a classification of the Oregon branches impaired because of PCBs in fish and because of limited aquatic life. But, as everybody knows, what's in the stream flows downstream.
Yeah, so here we just, I covered, again, the sampling sites, that they are. We have a map on here. They're all tagged with numbers, so you can kind of get a better idea of where those are, if you're not familiar with some of them, or, what's in the watershed. And then this is just a couple pictures of our sampling process. In order to get the samples, we have a plastic container at the end of a long pole. You reach it in, collect the water samples, do all the 7 sites on the same day. All the samples get collected and then transported to the lab for the test. And then again here, this just kind of talks about giving a timeline for the 2020 sampling dates. Talks about where those dates are and kind of flags where the disinfection starts and stops.
Sure. So in 2020, when we began, we found high levels to begin with, and then they dropped down. And that highlights one of the things that can be confusing about this kind of testing, and that is that the E. coli die-off, or inactivation as they call it, is variable depending on temperature and turbidity of the water, cloud cover. Various factors can lead to higher or lower levels of E. coli surviving in the creek. However, we have a fairly clear pattern of, if you look at MMSD's blue line there, coming down, dropping into the disinfection period and staying down until after the end of the disinfection period. So obviously the E. coli are being killed by the disinfection. And just to clarify, determining whether it's ruminant or human is done by studying bacteroides, which are gene copies. And that's microbial source tracking. That's what we've been talking about when we mean that. The bacteroides, human bacteroides, are just identifiers. They just say, okay, this is probably primarily human if the numbers are high enough. Next slide, please. And as you can see, we had, at the beginning, there was some indication of some ruminant input. And after that, it was almost nothing compared to the human levels.
Yep, then again, just showing the this time it was 5 dates in 2021 where they fall on a timeline and where they fall within that disinfectant period, which are going to be highlighted on the next slides. And again, you can see it's the same style of graphs as we had just before, just the updated year. The orange line up on top is Oregon. You can guess that it's high because it's not being treated, or it's not being UV treated. It's not disinfected with that. I mean, the water is being treated, don't get me wrong there.
Yeah. And you'll note, just to go back to that for a moment, you'll note that the 4 of the numbers up there are off the chart. The numbers are too high to be shown on the chart. So that's an important thing to note. And then we just go through the same slides again of, okay, is it human? This is the slide that shows that there's a lot of human bacteroides. And then next slide, please. And then in this one, look at the chart below. You'll look at all the zeros. There's only one point at which there was ruminant bacteroides detected, and that was at Lidl Mill. And that's probably an anomaly.
So we just concluded a 2-year study with this. One thing to note, so we sampled 11 times. We sampled 7 sites 11 times throughout the year. Each date that we sample, it costs us roughly $1,000. For a small chapter off of, as part of the Rock River Coalition we don't have the budget for that, but we definitely had some nice funding sources. We had a DNR river planning grant. We had part of the Stoughton Area Community Foundation grants, People's United Methodist Church here in Oregon. We were the Mission of the Month there. They provided us with a lot of money. Dane County Environmental Grant, our council grants, the Stoughton Utilities Roundup Program grant. I know you guys have been thinking about something similar to that in the village. So I would point you to Stoughton's program with that. Individual gifts, and then all of our volunteering. It's all our miles, all our time is all volunteered to use that as matching funds.
And I'd like to add to that Rock County provided a considerable amount of the volunteer labor in order to make the grant work.
So to summarize, here's a picture. This is looking, if you're at Highway 138 in Cooksville, looking upstream. You can kind of really get the wild feel of it. The creek changes so much as you go down it. Up here in the effluent ditch, you're in a ditch. You're going to know that you're in a ditch, but it's a totally different feel. You get down to Old Stone Road, you go through the wildlife area, you get to Old Stage Road, and then you start getting back into the natural area. It's actually pretty nice to be there. So there's a lot of people that paddle the Badfish Creek, including upstream sections of the Oregon Branch and effluent ditch. I've paddled the whole thing, and each section has its own challenges and its own draws. Obviously what we've shown is there's an elevated E. coli, levels present, in the creek, and they present health risks. Last year I was at one of the landings and I saw a family swimming in the water, and we had signs posted saying that there was elevated levels, and I don't want to make it seem like it's not safe to paddle on. It's just when I paddle on it, if I get in the water, the first thing I do after I put my gear away is I just get cleaned up. So I'm not going to stick my head in and drink the water because, I know better, but I know there's a lot of people, people that I paddle with, they'll stop and they'll swim if it's warm out. So we know people are using it not only on top of the water, but they're also experiencing it inside the water. So we want to ensure that paddling the Badfish is a safe way to enjoy the outdoors, now and in years to come. I think Lynn's got one more closing statement.
Yeah, I'd like to add some things. Oregon's discharge permit will be renewed in 2 years, and the village is growing rapidly, and its output is growing rapidly. Recreational use of the Badfish is also growing rapidly. It's remarkable to see how many people use the creek on a summer day, and a large number love to paddle the minute Canoecopia ends in second weekend in March. People are out on the Badfish because it's open. We're sharing this report with DNR, with Rock County Health Department, with MMSD and Stoughton Utilities, and with the paddling communities. We in the paddling groups will speak during the public comment meetings for the discharge permit. Based on the DNR's response to public comment on the MMSD permit, we feel there's a reasonable chance that DNR will acknowledge the significance of the recreational use trend we have documented and revisit the variance that exempts Oregon from disinfection. As you make your decisions, we encourage you to think about the Badfish in this new way as a valued recreational resource.
And then I guess one thing I'm going to just add before we open up for comments is, obviously right now the permit in Oregon doesn't require disinfectant. Looking at Jeff is like a 15-year plan, for the overhaul of the wastewater plant.
For the master plan.
Yeah, for the master plan. There's a spot in there. It's not in phase one. There is a spot in there. Obviously, there's a cost that goes along with it. I'm just going to throw out round numbers. If the overall project cost is $25 million, the disinfectant part might be $1 million. If you look at those numbers, that's a 4%. That's 4%. It's not. It'd be a lot different if it was $1 million cost on a $3 million project. So with the utility rate and the water rate not being raised, for the 11 years that I've been here, there's probably ways to make this work. And conversations I've had with people, it's like, yeah, we don't do it. It'd be a nice thing to do, but we're not required to do it. But it might be good to be forward thinking on this part of it, because if you want to be a good environmental steward, you want to do good, do good things for the community, show that you're ahead of these things instead of waiting until the point where you're required to do it. So, with that, again, I'm gonna say thank you. I will pause here if you guys have any comments or questions for us. If you want, more in-depth data, we can get that for you. We're just kind of giving you an overview right now, so.
Okay. Anybody? Board? Yeah, Jerry?
Yeah, Andy, I just wanted to thank you and your group for the interest you've shown in that area. And question, though, what's your favorite place to put into the bad fish?
I can't say all of it. It depends on who I'm with.
He loves the whole creek.
Yeah,
Well, I mean, if you're gonna have a newcomer, where would you tell them to put it?
So a couple of years ago, one of the projects we did, so the Badfish Creek Wildlife Area is a state-run land. It kind of encompasses a bunch of acres between Old Stone Road and Old Stage Road. The creek path through there is, you can find the map if you want to, Jeff. But it's only a little over 2.5 miles to go between it's right through that area there. It's only 2.5 miles. It's fairly straight. We got rid of a lot of the obstacles through there, and there's nice landings on both sides there. Nice landing in a parking lot on the north side at Old Stone Road, and there's a nice landing and a parking lot at Old Stage Road. If you use that as a primer, get yourself, it's always fun to do that first paddle of the year. It's actually where I paddled through and took out at Cooksville yesterday. But if you want to get more into the natural area, put in at Old Stage Road, paddle all the way down through Cooksville. It's 2 miles to Cooksville, and it's another just under 5 miles down to Casey Road, about 1.5 miles upstream of the confluence of the Yahara. That's where you're going to get the real feel of the Badfish Creek.
That's my favorite part of the creek. It's the area through the wildlife area has its beauties, but it's been straightened and ditched, and downstream of Little Mill Road, it retains its what are called natural meanders, where it's wandering this way and that way, and it makes for a lot more interesting paddling. So, yeah, I think depending on how used a person is to paddling a creek, that would be the first choice for somebody who can do the proper boat management. If they want a straight shot where they don't have to have too many challenges, I agree with Andy that the wildlife area is the place to go.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Well, we thank you. Thank you for the nice
thank you.
presentation.
Yeah,
Thank you for that.
Okay, one last thing. Ralph Erickson, would you stand up? Ralph did every one of the samplings. So we owe him a big thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, let's go to 5. We'll go proclamations and announcements. 5A is upcoming meetings and events. In our packet, we had that to put in calendars. 6 is report of village officers. We have Martin's is first. Martin always does a nice job. Anybody have any questions for Martin on his report? Not seeing any. All right, 6B is Chief of Police monthly report for December 2021. Chief?
Yeah, I'll just be quick. Two cases to highlight that I wouldn't say they're super unique, but rather unique. At the bowl, the Oregon Bowl, we had a disturbance where it started as a disturbance, and then one of the patrons involved in the disturbance ended up pepper spraying a crowd of the patrons. When our officers responded, pepper spray has a tendency of staying in the air, and our officer walked in on it. We were able to resolve the situation rather quickly and safely, but of course had to have our officer treated for the exposure to the pepper spray. And then on December 21st at 10:48 p.m., our officers responded to Bill's Foods for an alarm. They did a walkthrough with the business. Alarms are pretty typical, but something just didn't seem right. They brought in a canine, and we ended up finding a suspect located in a crawl space towards the back of the store, and he did indeed steal some cash from the place. So we arrested him and transported him to Dane County Jail for burglary and theft. And then there's just some other cases in there related to some OWIs and some OWI crashes. And then, I won't talk too much about the volume of cases other than that when looking at December 21 versus December 2020, we saw about a 220 call for service increase in that month. So we are certainly busy. And then I really don't have anything to add about the meetings and noteworthy items, but I'm happy to take any questions.
I just had one question about the total. I remember when I first came on the board, we were looking at 2019 compared to 2020. And so I'm just wondering, if this is probably an increase over, 2020 was an increase over 2019, and now we're looking at an increase over 2020. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Anybody else for Chief? Okay, Chief, thanks for that. Let's go to 6C, Director of Finance Report on cash, investments, building permits, connection fees, and impact fees. As Lisa provides this to us every once in a while. And if anybody's got any questions for her, or Lisa, do you want to say anything?
Just that this is where we ended up for 2021. We had a few more we had 2 more residentials in 2021 compared to 2020. We didn't have any duplexes, but we did have our big 71 unit and 41 unit apartments that are being built. So we're not achieving the full value as of 1/1/2022, which would factor into our net new construction, but hopefully they'll be completed this year. So we'll gain the full value then as of 1/1/2023 on those 3 large buildings.
Okay.
So, and I don't know if anybody has any questions. It just breaks it down a little bit further than by month. And then the overall building permits comparison from 2020 to 2021, we were up a little bit too.
All right, thank you, Lisa.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody? Seeing none, okay. 6D is Village Department Head Staff Consult Comments, if we have anything. 6E, Village Board Comments. Anybody have, Jerry's got a comment.
I've got a comment, actually it's a question. And I think it's either for Martin or Elise. And just a same question I had last meeting. Has there been any interest in the lot on North Main Street?
I've heard from a couple of developers that have inquired about it, but at this point, since we hadn't formalized the MOU to change the library site, I've just been letting people know that we'll reach back out when it becomes available. And
So that'll be after tonight then? Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right, let's go to 7. Communication, miscellaneous business. Items are for discussion, possible action. 7A is approval of vouchers, and looks like we have the amount is $149,984 and 47 cents. If I can get a motion in a second, we'll get it on the table and we can take some questions. Jerry looks like he's gonna, and Amanda.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, Amanda second. Okay, questions on the vouchers. Who wants to go up first?
I'll go. Go ahead. Let everybody else go first.
All right, Mike, are you up?
Yeah, just
Okay.
one question. Number 3950, there's a tax late fee. What is that? For $1,796.
Okay, so that was our federal withholding tax. We do the books for the fire district and the village, and it was a village payroll, and it was paid to the fire district accidentally, and once we discovered it, we turned around and made the payment then to the IRS for the village under our tax ID number instead of, and I did write a letter to have this forgiven, but I just sent it off probably a week ago, so I'm waiting to hear back on that.
Okay.
And then the other one, right below that, the smaller amount relates to back in 2020 during COVID. They told us that we could forego paying the FICA taxes for the village portion, which I guess ended up not really being totally true. So that's what that $114 was for.
Okay, and then I saw Luke? No? Oh, Jerry, you want me to go first?
Go ahead.
All right.
Yeah.
So 2024, I'm sorry, 2045, Lisa, Dane County Treasurer, AG conversion. What is that? Should I know that?
The egg conversion?
Yeah, A conversion, AG conversion, 17,000.
That's the egg conversion on the, was that
Um,
Highlands?
Well, that's the Highlands of Netherwood, and that's the portion that we need to pay. We collected the entire amount, and we had to pay
Okay.
Dane County their portion of the egg
Okay,
conversion fee.
got it. Okay, all right. That was it for me. Jerry, you're up?
I'm up. I waited. It's probably a good thing. I only have one question left now.
Okay.
And that has to do with the new village hall. And I see we have charges again. Is there a place that we'll be able to go back in the event that someone wants to know how much money has been put into that building?
I guess it depends on what kind of expense you're talking about. If you're talking about like electricity, or are you talking about the Sketchworks?
I'm talking about the Capitol.
Well, the capital, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's all, the money that we borrowed for that is all in the civic campus fund.
Right.
So as the expenses are coming through, we're charging back against the money that we borrowed for that project.
Okay, so you're moving in June. Say in September, I want to know how much you've put into that building. Is it to make it ready for staff? Is that going to be something that'll be available?
Yeah, that'll be available. Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, we have our budget of the extra $1 million that was borrowed. Part of it is for the senior center, and then there's a portion in there that was for, well, there was two different things for the senior center. And then the other portion of that is supposed to be for the renovation for our move.
Thank you.
Mhm.
That it, Jerry?
That's it?
That's it? Anybody else? Okay, so we have a motion, a second. The amount again is $149,984.47. Candy?
Actually, Randy,
Oh.
it's $350. Go down one more
Wait.
line.
Oh, well, thank you for that.
Yeah.
So I looked at the wrong, all right, so we're approving 350, 565, and 52 cents. And is that okay with the motion in the second? Okay, thanks for catching that on me. All right, Candy?
Yes.
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 Yes?
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
All right. All right, we're at 7B, Oregon Public Library meeting minutes from January 12th, 2022. Information only was in our packet for you to read. 7C, authorized hiring of Lauren and say his name. Striegel. I should know that, I was on the panel. For the Assistant Director of Public Works, Village Engineer position, at an annual salary of $85,000. Staff recommendation is to approve, and I see Lauren is in the audience. So welcome, Lauren.
Yeah.
And Jeff, do you want to say something before we?
Absolutely. You know, as you know, we've kind of been restructuring how we're handling everything in Public Works and trying to create some more structure as we grow. One of the things was to kind of kind of create this position of the Assistant Director of Public Works / Village Engineer, more of a management type role that would assist with some of the utilities and some of the projects and utilities, as well as just be able to handle some of the day-to-day activities and everything. So we did go out, we went out for applicants for that. We received 4 applications. Not as many as we'd hoped, but like I've said before, we just need one really good applicant. That's, you know, and in this situation, we got 2 applicants. We went through the whole interview process, had a secondary interview with just several of us, and I'm just very pleased to present for your approval tonight Lauren Striegel. She's a licensed professional civil engineer. She has undergraduate and graduate degrees in engineering and water resources. She interviewed very well. She did very well with the writing exercise, which is something we really do look for, because as you know, we communicate a lot with you in writing and with the public in writing. And she's very excited about joining us. Her background was completed by Oregon Police Department. That came back without any troubles, and I'm just very confident that she'll be a great asset to the village as well as to our department. So we welcome her. I don't know if you want to
Lauren, do you want to say anything?
anything,
Come up
or-
and say something?
It's the first of your thousands of night meetings that you're going to do.
How exciting. Okay, everyone can hear me?
Yes.
I don't have much to say except for thank you. I'm very, very excited. As many of you know, I am a resident of the town, so just on the outskirts out by Highlands. Both of my kids, one is at school here at Netherwood Knoll, and the other one is at daycare over at La Petite. My husband and I love this community. We've been here for 8 years, and we've just adored it. It's a great small village, and we're excited to be raising our kids here, and I'm excited to get to serve here in this great community.
So Lauren, when do you start?
It depends a little bit. Once this is formalized, then we'll go to a 2-week notice period. We're looking probably at mid-March.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. All right, very good.
She has to notify her employer.
Yep.
After tonight, that'll probably be obvious, I would think.
Right.
All right, so we need a motion and a second. All right, I saw Amanda first and I saw Jerry. So we got a motion and a second to authorize hiring of Lauren. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, welcome, Lauren.
Welcome.
You're
Thank you,
official.
everyone.
Oh, sounds good.
Now we'll tell you
Thanks,
about
Lauren, we'll
Jeff.
be in touch.
Yeah.
What?
Has anybody told you about Jeff yet?
Yeah.
All right, we're on to 7D, which is the revisions to the Oregon Police Department Policy and Procedure Manual. All the stuff was in our packet. Chief, I don't know, how you want to handle? We've all looked at it, or you want to take questions, or what would you like to do?
Yeah, I guess first to start, you're probably wondering why you have 3 different memos and why this wasn't all combined into one memo. I didn't know how much I could pull off before the meeting, to be honest with you. We are moving into the accreditation preparation now. We'll probably do the full assessment in, I'd say maybe October. So I really need to finalize these policies and get them locked in so we can start finding proofs to show we're meeting the accreditation standards. So I have with me here tonight Officer Jeremy Hatfield. He is very integral to our training, our firearms, and any other tool that we use in law enforcement. So I know that I come to you with my changes that I'd like to make to policy, and I have them highlighted in the memo to hopefully make them a little bit easier to get through. But I know at times this is, bringing a policy forward to the board has kind of provoked other questions that I wasn't prepared for. So I am not an expert like Officer Hatfield is in firearms. That's why I send him. He is phenomenal at it. So just in case there's not a question I can ask related to the role-specific parts of the firearms and whatnot, he's here to help. So yeah, in each of the memos, it highlights exactly what I'm looking at changing. Really, this all comes down to just updating what our current practice is. And then the only other one that is unique that just comes to mind is for the weapons and ammunition policy. So my predecessor had put the state qualification in the policy. At any time, the Department of Justice Training and Standards could come in and change it. Doesn't happen often, but just like that, it could change. We will know it changes, but for us to come back to you with the newest state qualification, that takes time, and heaven forbid, we have a situation where this policy pertains to. This is one of the most critical policies we need to make sure is up to date. We have no control over what the state qualifications are. Training and Standards sends that to us as instructors, as departments, and we implement it as soon as possible. So I just think it is best to take the state qual out, because it's not ours anyway, and just simply say the qualification. And that's per state statute, so that is law that we do that. That is also in alliance with accreditation, so we're still meeting those standards. All of the changes that you're seeing in front of you in these memos are also aligned with state law, federal law, and accreditation, as well as from feedback from the Dane County District Attorney's Office. So yes, I'm happy to take any questions. And I don't know if you want to just start
I-
with the first policy?
I think we can just ask, Mark, we can take all 6
Okay.
at one time, but let's open, anybody have any questions on any of the 6 that were in our packet? Mike's got something? Okay, Mike, go ahead.
Yeah, on page 12, under the weapons policies, section 4B, you refer to the department's recent proficiency course. I get your reference in the 4A to the most recent Wisconsin DOJ handgun qualification standard.
Sorry, Mike, could you tell us what page you're on in the packet? That would.
Oh, that was,
follow.
in the packet, it's page 75.
Okay, thank you. Sorry to interrupt.
Sorry about that.
Okay.
So a question I have is, what is the proficiency standard? Because you seem to nail everything else
Yep.
in the packet pretty, pretty detailed. And then the proficiency standard, is that, is that a formalized, that course a formalized standard? How is that determined?
So, perhaps if you want to explain it. So he is part of implementing those proficiency tests, so.
So to answer your question, annually, we're required to pass the state qualification, and that's the very minimum for law enforcement. We, as an agency, take it even farther, and we usually qualify or do this proficiency shoot approximately 4 times a year. So the way our proficiency shoots right now is it's a total of around 25 rounds, and the officer needs to get 20 rounds in the designated area in order to be a pass. If the officer does not pass, they receive some remedial training on site and then get to the point where they can pass before they go back on duty.
Okay, thank you.
Does that answer your question?
I think so.
Okay.
All right, any other questions from anybody on any of the 6? Looks like Derek's got something?
Kind of got a question. So, same section, page 71 of the packet, secondary and off-duty firearms, 5A, and apparently we allow officers to carry a secondary firearm under, if they submit a request for them. Is there a lot of the officers do that, out of curiosity?
It varies. It will also vary with the climate as well. I've seen an increase in that as more officers are being ambushed around the country and things like that. So it really depends on the officer and if they feel comfortable and have a desire to carry.
So do they still have to go through the same training with that secondary firearm as they do with their primary?
Yep. So right now with our current policy, what they do is once a year, we'll have an in-service where we'll dedicate to that. They will pass the qualification course. Once they pass that, then they submit the request to myself as a firearms training coordinator. I do an inspection on their weapon to make sure that it's up to date, that it hasn't been tampered with, and that it's appropriate for them to carry. And then once all that, they'll notify me their method of carry, where they're going to carry it on the person, what ammo they're going to use. Once I'm comfortable with all that, I sign off on it. I take it over to Chief Pinkoff, who has a final say on it. And then once she signs off on that, everything's properly documented and the officer is authorized to carry.
And once you go through those inspections, are those updated every so often? Or, do they re-inspect like annually or?
Yep, annually they'll have to qualify with that same weapon. If they choose to change a weapon or, a year goes by, a couple months later, they end up getting a new weapon that they want to carry, we try to accommodate that too, that they can qualify. But they have to qualify, submit all the paperwork, and has to get approved by myself and then ultimately Chief Pagenkoff.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Anybody else? So let me ask, are we all comfortable? Can we do all 6 at one time? I'm seeing some head nods. Okay. So I'm looking for a motion and a second then to approve 1 through 6. Amanda and then Jerry. Amanda first and then Jerry second. Okay. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Chief, good. All right, we're on to 7E, three-year repayment agreement with Police Officer Daniel Bachman. Staff recommendation is to approve. We've seen these before, Chief. These are kind of regular.
Yep,
Yeah.
very standard with new hires.
So, if somebody wants to make a motion in a second, Amanda and Carleen, sorry. All right, Amanda and Carleen, a motion, any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. We'll go to F, which is a 5-year repayment agreement with Police Officer Jordan Colson. Staff recommending to approve this one. I'll take a motion in a second. I see Amanda again, and Luke, second. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. We'll go to G, which is a request to waive repayment under the terms of a 3-year repayment agreement submitted by former police officer Cody Kohler. And staff is recommending that we reject this request. I think, Chief, we've had one of these or two before.
Correct.
Us before, too. So this one is to reject the request for repayment. I'll take a motion in a second. Amanda and Mike, any discussion? Okay. All in favor, so we're approving to reject this one. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. And then we're on to 7H, resolution number 2205, authorization to submit a Wisconsin Arts Board Creative Communities Program Grant application. Staff is recommending approval. This is basically a little Wisconsin Arts, and it goes along with the public arts program. We got the grant for $100,000. It's kind of similar to have public art around the village. $6,000, got to have a $6,000 match. So we're just, and this actually is a 2-phase thing. So the first phase is you submit and see if they like it, and then you're asked to come back if they like it and submit the second half. So we just want to make sure we get approval from the board to go ahead and do that first piece. So I'll take a motion in a second. Carleen and Derek, any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
Actually, I
And,
do have a question.
yeah,
So is there then an application if there are people in the village who want to apply to produce something that they would apply to the village for some of these funds for that? Or is this something that we would just use funds to purchase art?
yeah, so it's, I had gotten some private donations and we created a fund, public art fund,
Mhm.
and this would just go into that.
And then is there a grant process if somebody,
Y-
like
y-
for re-granting? to
Yeah,
people?
so Carleen, so since we got it's kind of the same amount where the 100,000 is going. So we're getting ready to move forward and how we're gonna do proposals to artists and trying to form a committee on, and get the community involved on what would we pick, that sort of stuff.
Okay.
So that's yet to come,
Okay, all right, I just
Yeah.
wasn't clear on
the
how this would
process.
be dispersed.
Yep,
Right.
yep.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So 7I is lease agreement for space at Village Hall between the Oregon Area Chamber of Commerce and Village of Oregon for 2022. Staff recommendation is to approve. There was information in our packet. Anybody want to make a motion in a second?
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, so we can discuss.
All right, yep. Let's get a second and then we can discuss. All right, Derek? All right, yeah, Amanda.
So this is for this village hall, they would just stay here? Okay,
Correct.
okay. I just wanted, that's what I thought.
And
I
it
was
would just be through
understanding.
the end of this year, yep.
Okay, all right.
Okay. Anybody else? All right, we got a motion in a second.
Excuse me, aren't they moving to the new building as well? They don't just stay here, do they?
The plan is they will move, but do you want to talk about the village hall space?
Yeah, so yes, the plan is that they will move over there. What we have found is that the budget that we have for the building is not enough to cover the renovations that included the Chamber of Commerce area. Chamber of Commerce is since working with us in an alternate plan that they might have members complete the renovation work on that portion of the building, under their cost. And we're working through a new lease that would occupy that building with them. So it's in the development process.
Okay.
All right, anybody else? So we do have a motion and a second to approve. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you. 7J is Wisconsin Help for Homeowners, Homeowner Assistance Fund Participation Agreement between the State of Wisconsin Department of Administration, Division of Energy, Housing and Community Resources, and the Village of Oregon. The stuff was in our packet. Anybody want to make a motion? All right, Carleen? Need a all right, Mike seconded, okay? Any discussion? One thing I was gonna ask is, Martin, can we put something on our website so we let people know that this is available?
Yep, definitely.
Okay?
And
And,
I would
yeah,
put it in the paper too. Can we put it in the paper too?
Yeah, we certainly can, yeah.
okay. Amanda?
So the village is administering the program here?
So
How
the
that-
state administers the program, and when we become a participant, it facilitates them making payments to us. So if you are going to, if you're an individual who's going to take advantage of this program, you apply through the state, and then the state gives us the money. So it doesn't go
Okay.
to the person first, then to us, it just comes right to us.
I gotcha. Okay, thanks.
Mike? Yeah.
Yeah, just a question. Do you have any idea the rationale for not including mortgage payments and assistance?
I don't know, I was a little confused by that. I think they're still working with the federal government to develop this program. I don't think it's been completely finalized yet. So I think there's more information to come. 'Cause I
Okay.
think that was the original intent.
Okay. Anybody else? All right, we have a motion and a second, and we'll get this up on in the website, and as Carleen suggested, in the paper, let people know. Okay? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. We're on to 7K, amendment number 1 to agreement for technical services between the Village of Oregon and Strand Associates related to extending ongoing professional engineering services. Jeff, I think, is this something we have done in the past?
This is just yeah, it's just to extend it.
Okay.
There's no commitment here to any project or any funds
Okay.
to spend.
All right, can we get a motion in a second? Derek, and I see Mike's hand. Okay, any discussion on this one? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, okay? Then we'll go to L, amendment number 1 to task order 1904 between the Village of Oregon and Strand Associates related to extending ongoing on-call general water engineering support services. Jeff, do we need to say anything on this
Nope,
one?
same stuff.
Same thing, same
Yep.
do, okay? Can we get a motion in a second? Amanda and Curly? Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, okay? 7M, relocation order for planned improvements at the intersection of Janesville Street and South Perry Parkway. Recommend motion is to approve. Jeff, do we need to say anything, or?
Do you want to do the motion first, or do you want me to say first?
We can do. Amanda's doing, and Derek, so we got a motion in a second, so go
Yeah,
ahead, Jeff.
This is just standard. Obviously, we've brought before the intersection plan. We have very small right-of-way acquisitions on the corners. And this is part of that process, is to have this resolution that the village board is authorizing our engineers and the village to proceed with this acquisition of the right-of-way.
Okay. All right, we got a motion in a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, okay?
Thank you.
We're on to N, which is authorized purchase of miscellaneous public works equipment in the amount of $3,450. Motion is to, or recommended motion is to approve. Anybody like to make that motion? Amanda and Carleen? Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, okay?
Thank you.
7,
I have a question.
yeah, Carleen, go ahead.
Jeff, what kind of weather station did you get?
Nick's got it picked out. I don't remember the name of it off the top of my head. It's a little nicer than obviously what you would buy at, I've eyed them at Costco. This is the exact same one we have over at the wastewater treatment plant, and we've had really good luck with it.
It's on page 186, what they're ordering.
Oh, is it? Okay, great, thank you.
What does it say here? Oh, there it is.
Davis
Davis
Instruments.
Instruments.
David.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
All right, so
Weather station.
we're on to 7O.
I'm not gonna spend that kind of money.
Authorized purchase of LED light tower from Lincoln Contractor Supply for the Public Works Department in the amount of $12,585. Jeff had a memo about needing it and for a water, I think it was a water main, Jeff, and it
Well,
looks like it comes,
yeah.
it can come in handy for other things as well.
I was gonna say, this is one of those tools, a couple of years ago, we purchased the message board sign, and we use that all the time. We use it for public announcements, water main breaks, storms coming, contact emergencies, stay healthy Oregon, whatever. And it was Christmas Eve, literally Christmas Eve, and we were out repairing a water main break on, at Oak Street. And as we drove by, my wife and I and our family drove by, I was just reminded how dark it was. And so I talked to Nick and I said, you know, I've been kicking around this idea that we would be able to utilize a light trailer for that as well as many other things. So I look at this as not only a safety issue, as these are easily portable, we can take them out quickly, they set up very quickly, but it can also be used for a lot of different things. If we ever had a police scenario where we needed crime scene investigation at nighttime, or if there was something else going on in the village, well, for any of our events that we have, that type of thing. Sometimes the event closes down and then it's just all dark as people head out. I think there's a lot of uses for it, and so I talked with Nick about it, and he agrees that he thinks it's something that it'd be good for us to have. We did just sell, if you remember, we declared some surplus items. It is a great time to sell surplus items. It is. We are getting an unbelievable amount of funds back on that, and so that's where we would be using that from old equipment and stuff, moving that forward to something new that we'll use for a lot of different things.
Any used cars for sale? They're getting premium on those too.
We sold, okay, just so you know, we sold a very old pickup truck that was a parked pickup truck. In the description, it said, has difficulty shifting into park. That sold for $2,000.
Oh, cow.
Our old flatbed that we sold on auction, was that 4 years ago? We sold 2 of them. Each of those sold for $4,500 and $4,600 a piece. This one, last week, sold for $16,000. So, yes, it is a good, it's been a very good time on, I think there's so many people having difficulty finding equipment and materials, and, you know, this surplus stuff that we've been able to identify has been good for us to
Okay.
get rid of.
All right, so Derek's got a question. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
Oh, sorry.
sorry.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Derek.
So you mentioned police might be able to utilize this too, but I was just kind of thinking the fire EMS district had
Yep.
recently discussed, would they be able to get in on that as well?
Absolutely, yeah, we let everyone utilize our equipment all the time. You know, no borders.
Pass that along, thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Amanda?
Yeah, I'm wondering, is this like a, does it, burn, is it a gasoline or diesel
It's-
generator, or does it make noise?
It's a great question. Actually, it's a quiet generator. It's in an enclosure. But this also has something called, one of the items that we did have added was called shore power. So if you actually have an ability to plug it in, it doesn't have to run off the generator. So for something like National Night Out or something like that, you don't want a generator running in the background, you can use it for that, but
That's nice.
yeah.
Yeah, good choice, okay.
Anybody else? All right, yeah, Jerry.
And you mentioned funding, Jeff. Does that mean that the old equipment you sold completely covered the cost of that?
Yes, that and way more. I mean,
Okay.
we're having a meeting with Lisa and that, but I think our proceeds from the auctions, from the 2 auctions, are exceeding $33,000.
Wow, okay, good job.
So this will just be part of what we're upgrading with.
Very good.
And some of that money is also going back also to offset some of our equipment purchases this year, so we won't have to borrow as much. So,
All right, so let's get a motion in a second to approve the LED light tower.
Oh, did we do that?
No, we didn't do it.
I thought the motion.
I didn't think I did them. See, I didn't, hey,
Okay.
hey, I'm right
Okay,
tonight.
you're right.
See, I always think,
All right, we got
all
it.
right, Carleen and Derek. All right, any other discussion? Usually I'm the one that gets pulled up. All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay,
Thank you.
yep. And then we're on to P7P, Water Main Improvement Design Construction Services for the 2023 County Janesville Street Improvement Project with Town and Country Engineering in the amount of $58,500. Staff is recommending approval. Jeff, do you need to say anything on this, or are we ready?
These are the same engineers we used on North Main Street. I think they did a phenomenal job. We also used them on Jefferson Street when we did them several years ago, and they handled a very difficult contractor at that time very well. So we've had really good luck, and they always give us a very good, fair price for doing this work.
Okay, can we get a motion in a second to approve this? Amanda and Derek? Okay, any other discussion? Yeah, Mike?
Is this just for water main work, or are they also doing design work on sewer and other things?
It covers it's water main work, but they'll also look at the sewers. We'll have televised the sewers, and we'll look at the manhole rings and cones and that to make sure that if anything has to be upgraded, it'll be done at this time, with the utility project. This does not include the roadway design, but that's done by Dane County.
Right, so this is basically everything underground.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, anybody else? All right, we got a motion and a second to approve. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. All right, we're on to Q. Engineering services for the 2022 private lead service line replacement project at Rupert and Milky in the amount of $44,690. And Jeff, we told the board that we're applying for this, but do you want to say anything else for the,
Well,
get the lead out?
Yeah, this is part and parcel with the plan, but we're hoping for the grant.
Yep.
We're optimistic, actually, and we also feel that even beyond this grant, there's a lot of the money that's coming through the Rebuild America, or is it the American
Yes.
Infrastructure Build, the BIL, what is that, the build? I don't know, there's so many acronyms floating around right now, but a lot of money is coming out of that for lead service line
Yeah.
replacement, so.
So if you all remember, this one is, for the lead is almost $1 million, which is great to
Yep.
get that out of the village, so. All right, so anybody want to make a motion in a second? All right, Amanda and Carleen, any other discussion on this one? All right, all in favor, say aye.
I have a question.
Yeah.
How long is it projected that this is gonna take?
For the grant program, if we get the grant money, I'm way behind on my,
I think we do in a year, don't we?
we have to finish it this year.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep.
All right, so we had a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, okay? We're on to R, which is construction services for the 2022 Southbury Parkway, Janesville Street intersection improvements. Project with Town and Country Engineering in the amount of $10,500. Jeff's already talked about this, so if we can get a motion in a second, take care of this. Amanda and Derek, any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay,
I'm done spending your money.
yep.
Thanks.
Now we're on
No,
to.
you aren't.
For tonight, I should have said that tonight.
Now we're on to Elise. She's been quiet down there. 7S, cost reimbursement agreement between Fiduciary Real Estate Development in the Village of Oregon for the Woods at Bergamot development. Staff recommendation is to approve. And Elise, you've talked about these before. I know, is this the new one?
This will be for a revised phase, the woods at Bergamot, so it'll be in the new Bergamot phase, kind of up on that hill where it's still wooded, but they back up to
Yeah.
the Legend Hills. Those
Got
little
it.
narrow lots by the clubhouse.
Okay,
So just to cover the costs for
yep.
consultant time, my time, publications, all their reviews associated with replanning this area.
Okay. All right. Want to make a motion in a second? Anybody? Amanda and Luke. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. 8, report of committees. We have none. 9, unfinished business items are for discussion and possible action. 9A is review of civil asset forfeiture information submitted by Police Chief Pegenkoff. Chief, do you want to?
Yeah, so I did look into this, and then I put in my memo who I
Yep.
talked with, what the findings were, and if anybody has any questions as to what's in the memo, I'd be happy to
Yeah, I
Can
think,
elaborate?
anybody have any questions? I think, Mike, this is one that I think you brought forward.
Yeah, I
Yes?
did. Thank you for looking into this.
You
This
bet.
is good.
Okay. So Chief, do you want us to, Martin, do you want us to do a motion on it or not? No?
No
Okay.
action, I guess.
All right, no action.
Can I just also say thank you? I know it's an extra hoop, but I was also curious about how this worked even, Mike brought it forward, but I was always thinking, oh yeah, I wonder how that works in our area. So this is helpful and I appreciate you taking the time to put it together.
You bet. You bet.
All right. Moving on to 9B. Review village attorney draft of tax increment financing. This is the skinny version.
Yeah.
Martin, you want to say anything?
Sure. So a few meetings back, we talked about the TIF policy, and Matt had mentioned that, well, first of all, he hadn't had a chance to review it at that time, but he had mentioned that his suggestion would be to, as Randy said, have a skinny version, which basically meets the letter of the law, provides for a written process, and then gives the board maximum flexibility in addressing whatever that may come before it, rather than imposing some hamstrings that may come up that you would just need to change the policy for anyways. So that's the kind of the two options. You had the one in your packet previously, which was a little bit longer and more detailed, but this one is definitely just as good and like I said, it's just more pared down and gives the board flexibility.
You want action or not needed? What do you want?
Yeah, I mean, if you're ready to
Okay.
approve it.
Well, let's see. Are we,
Form.
are you making a motion, Mike, or do you want to discuss?
Well, I want to
first?
put it on the floor. for
All right, get it on the
approval.
floor from Mike. Can we get a second? All right, Amanda? All right, it's on the floor. Mike, are you wanna?
Yeah.
Go ahead, sorry. Hard for me to see
Um,
way down there.
I like how this has been rewritten. It's a lot simpler and certainly a lot shorter, which was appreciated in this packet. Section 5D on page 225 of the packet has yet another typo. I'm good at calling these out. What is necessary is actually not good English, and we should probably correct it before it's published, but
Where is that?
Oh, I see it.
Section 5, Article D, the end sentence, last sentence. Other than that, I think it's a really good rewrite and hit the gist of everything that we had kind of talked about.
Okay. Anybody have anything else? All right, we got a motion and a second to approve. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, done. All right, 9C is update on application process for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee and determine the next steps. And I think Carlene is gonna
Yeah.
kind of give us a few things, what she's found out.
Well, first I'd like to just thank the people who did apply to be part of the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee and say that appreciate the applications. However, of the 7 positions on the 7, correct?
Yes, yep.
There were only 2 BIPOC individuals who applied, both were students who are minors. And as we look at a Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee for our village, from an all-white board and an all-white staff, feels like that is not the way to go. That we should be really intentional about making sure that the majority of the people who serve on a Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee are people of color and include people with disabilities. So I spoke with Martin and Randy about putting this back out for, to ask more people to apply and to do some specific recruiting. And I'd like to maybe talk with Martin and other staff members about the best way to go about doing that. I know that we put it on our website and we put it on the Facebook page and we put it in the paper, but I think that we're not hitting the population that we would like to have as part of this committee. And so before we move forward with actually establishing a committee that's functioning to meet the purposes that were outlined by the board, I think that we just need to go back and be more intentional about ensuring that we have people of color who are in a majority on this committee.
And Carleen, I'll just say, I've gotten a couple emails from some folks who have applied, and I just sort of said, we want to make sure we get this right.
That's right.
And so I absolutely agree with your recommendations to expand and go out a little, see if we can get some additional folks. And I see Mike's got his hand up down there.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right to put the brakes on this and throw it out for more applications. I'm wondering, we had a discussion during the original ordinance that got passed to establish this committee about allowing membership outside of the village limits, opening it up to people that are part of the school district and the other service areas that the village applies, the senior center, fire and EMS, school district. To me, it seems if we're having problems recruiting, that we may want to throw a wider net, and perhaps open this up to membership that is outside the village limits, and to do that now as opposed to having to go through perhaps a third round of trying to get people recruited.
I don't know what our legal parameters are on that, and when I was reading it, is because it says the committee will serve as an advisory to the village board, I didn't know if that gave us any kind of, like we have to stay within the village, so that's also a question that I had. It's underlined in my, in what I have here, and I also did say in what I wrote to Martin and to Randy that, that if we put it out again and we say a time limit and we don't get applicants enough, more applicants, different applicants, that perhaps we might consider going outside the village limits as well. So I think that's.
Yeah, Martin, what?
So the way the ordinance is written for the committee is that right now all members shall be residents of the village. So I guess depending on which way you want to do the order of operations, if you want to put it out to a larger crowd, then you would want to amend this ordinance, which we could prepare something for the next meeting if that's desired. Otherwise, if you want to try putting it out a second time and then coming back and amending the ordinance, if it doesn't go the way that you want, then we can do that too.
Okay, Derek?
Yeah, just a question. On all of our other boards and committees, how many of them are school district wide for applicants?
I think the Historic Preservation Commission allows individuals outside of the community. That's the only one I can.
Yeah, I think so.
Fire and EMS doesn't?
Some of the school district members, or the student members can be within a school district.
And then certain members of bodies, like the library board has to have the school district administrator, which doesn't necessarily have to live in the community. And then the tourism commission has to have a hotel and motel representative, which doesn't necessarily have to live in the community either. So.
The Council on Aging is the service area, right?
The Council on Aging has representatives from the service area.
Yeah.
The council is beyond the village,
Sorry,
just like the fire
EMS.
district.
Yeah, I would think fire and EMS also has
Yeah.
other.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
So-
representatives from the boards that are on those. And I guess my thing is, I guess I would prefer that we try a second time for recruitment before we open it up, just because I have a hard time with, if village funds are being spent on things, I think that it should be really
Well,
the
these
village.
people
that
are all volunteers, so there's
No,
no
I-
village funds being set.
Well, no, but
But
there's.
it would, the thing that in my view limits it is that it's a body that's advising the village board, and so that's something else.
Exactly, they're advising the village board on how to spend village funds to a certain degree when it comes to the diversity training, that's up, things like that, so I guess that's where I'm coming. I'd rather see us try a second time before we amend the ordinance.
And I think what Martin was saying, if we wanted to amend the ordinance, it would be another 2 weeks, right? Because it's got to come back to us.
Yep.
And then we lose 2 more weeks. I don't know. Mike, you had your hand up.
Yeah, to me, diversity, equity, and inclusion should be across all of the village services, not just the ones that stop at the village border. So, you know, I think we should do this and do it right, and to have a second round of recruitment for this committee come up potentially short and stuff is not a good look for launching a diversity, equity, and inclusion committee. I'd rather expand it now and get a wider base of people. I know that there are people that have expressed interest in being on this committee that technically live outside the village bounds. And, you know, they would be good people to have on this committee. So I don't know why we're cutting it off when our service area, for a lot of what we do, is much larger than the village of Oregon. So that's my 2 cents.
Amanda?
Yeah, well, we just made the ordinance, and now we'll be changing it again. I guess I'd like to see us not change the ordinance yet, because here's the thing. We put out information, from what I understand. We put it out there, and we expected people to come to us. What Carlene is suggesting is actually doing more active recruitment, like talking to Leslie Bergstrom at the school district, for example, and trying to find people who live in the village who are BIPOC community members. And I feel like if we did it a little more targeted, we might get the results that we were looking for. And rather than go through changing the ordinance. Now, if we don't get anything after that, I'm 100% open to changing it and doing that, but I really, you know, it's a village committee, and it's not to say I wouldn't welcome input from people outside the community. I mean, I hope they do attend and, you know, help that committee do its work, but,
Okay.
yeah.
All right, this, either more discussion, or does somebody want to make a motion?
Yeah, there is a little more discussion.
Okay.
In the composition, I think it should say that the majority of the members, preferably 5 of 7, be from BIPOC communities. And it just right now says, it says diverse backgrounds and characteristics, and it doesn't state majority. I think we need to be really clear that.
I like the idea, but are you, just to be clear, are you suggesting 5 or 4? You're saying majority BIPOC?
I said 5.
You said 5.
I said 5.
You think over majority?
Yes.
'Cause- okay.
Super majority.
Super majority. Okay.
So that's changing the ordinance. Yeah. All right, so that would mean we got to change the ordinance. So, yeah, Derek?
There be legal issues with changing it that way?
Yeah, I would want to talk to Matt about that language, just because I know some communities, I think Madison is one of them, have run into lawsuits because of creating that
Really?
requirement.
Huh, okay.
There's a 14th Amendment potential issue that I think is being worked through the courts on that.
But we could still aim for that goal, for sure, without putting it in our ordinance, right? I mean, like,
Sure.
just as, you know, something.
Yeah, I mean, the president nominates, the board confirms, so you guys control the makeup of that committee.
Yeah.
Jerry, you had your hand
I
up.
was just gonna say, if we get Matt involved, that's gonna be additional
Yeah.
cost.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we already spent a cost to do this initially, and already we're gonna spend more money on changing it. And I'm not saying, that's not to say the changes would be bad. The change sounds like a good one, but I think I heard a couple of comments that said, let's publish it again and see what happens. And then I guess if it doesn't work, then we look at spending more money on redrafting the ordinance.
All right, somebody ready to make a motion? All right, Derek, go ahead.
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we put it out for another round of recruitment. Do you have a
You want to
date in
look,
mind?
yeah, just maybe you want to say school district or,
that we should collaborate with the Oregon School District, Youth Center, and Food Pantry and area businesses and churches to publicize the formation of the committee. We'll do some outreach for some recruitment. Did you have a date in mind where you want the application that way?
I don't know.
What's today, the 21st?
21st.
And the next meeting is the 7th. What about, do you think a month is enough by March 21st?
Well, I guess, when do you want to talk about it again? I mean, if you wanted to have the the potential appointments beyond the March 21st meeting, we'd want to have those all back by March 14th. But if you wanted to push it out till April, then that's not an issue.
I'd say by March 14th.
Well, I'm not going to be here for the 21st meeting anyway, because I'll be in North Carolina, so. Let's,
So we want enough time that we could get out there and do some recruiting, right, Carleen? For sure.
when's the first April meeting? April 4th, is that right?
It'll actually be April 11th, because the election is April, the week of the election is April 4th.
Okay, so in time to review them for the April 11th meeting.
Okay.
How's that?
Mm-hmm.
That should be enough.
All right, so
Is that enough time?
Derek, you're okay with that?
Yeah.
Okay, so Derek made the motion. Can we get a second on Derek? All right, Carleen? Any other discussion? All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay? I don't,
No.
no, I don't think so. Okay. Okay, we're on to 9D, which is the amendment to the memorandum of understanding between the Village of Oregon Village Board and Library Board related to the construction of a new municipal library. Motion is staff recommending to approve. Jennifer, or who do we want? Martin, do you want Jennifer to take it, or?
I'll let Martin take it. He did all
Sure.
the hard work.
All right.
So, as you guys are familiar, we have a memorandum of understanding with the library board on the design, financing, and construction of the new library. That's been in existence since 2018. And so with the motion to put the site out at the west side location, we got to put this in writing and make it formal, and both bodies have to approve this document. So that's what this accomplishes. Jennifer and I took a little time to go through the MOU and clean up some stuff. I made a couple notes in my memo regarding that, but the big one was the item that was addressed at the last meeting, which was to incorporate the Nature Alliance's recommendations, which is in the draft.
Okay. So do we want to, can we get a motion in a second, get it on the table, and then we can have some discussion? Mike, you motion?
Mhm.
Okay, and Carleen, okay. Got a motion in a second? All right, discussion. And I'm sure, Mike, you got,
Yeah,
Yeah.
I really like the language incorporating the changes in the MOU from the last discussion and looking at what the last MOU was versus this one. I think he did a really nice job of cleaning it up, so.
okay. Anybody else? All right, we got a motion in a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. It's easy. 9E, agreement between the Village of Oregon acting through its library board and OPN Architects for the Oregon Public Library project. Staff recommendation is to approve. There is one note, the agreement should exclude Article 13.2.2. Am I get that right, Jennifer?
Yes, there was a article reference, or there's a document referenced in 13.2.2, which was not included in your packet. And the agreement can be approved without that. That just governs digital transmission of files. And so we, if you so move to approve the agreement tonight, you can exclude that article, please. We will have a document reviewed by the village attorney and determine if that needs to be approved by this board at a future date. But it is not,
Okay.
that article is being struck tonight.
All right. Do you want to get, anybody want to make a motion in a second?
What is it, 13?
13.2.2.
Yeah, 13.2.
It just
0.2.
references
Okay.
E203 AIA agreement document, which is not included in your packet. So that's why we're striking it from the agreement. And there's no issue with doing so in terms of the agreement itself or the relationship with the architect.
All right.
Okay.
Ready for a motion in a second? All right, Amanda's gonna motion. And Carleen, okay, any other discussion? All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. We're on to 9F, which is ordinance number 22-06. Ordinance creating section 1.40 of the Oregon Municipal Code regarding the creation of the ad hoc transportation committee. Staff recommendation, we'll do a motion to suspend the rules and waive the first and second readings first, and then we'll do the ordinance approval. So if I get a motion and a second to suspend the reading. Amanda and Mike? All right, any discussion on that? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, now the ordinance. Take a motion and a second to approve. Amanda? And Derek here, okay? Any discussion? All right, this is gonna be the new Transportation Committee. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Very good. Okay, 9G is review term limits for village appointments, committees, commissions, and boards as part of Chapter 1 and 2 rewrite of the village code. I know Martin has got a memo in our packet as well. I don't know if you want to say anything, but.
Sure. Yeah, so we've addressed pretty much everything that we kind of set out to address here in chapters 1 and 2. We just need to do the final cleanup. The one item that was kind of hanging out there is term limits, and we talked about it at the January 10th meeting. We tabled it to this meeting, and as I stated in my memo, as I've kind of gotten into this, we're going to have to, if we do move forward with term limits, we're going to have to be a little bit more nuanced on how we articulate all of those limits, just because there's some unique circumstances with some of the bodies, and obviously I listed them out here. For example, the Board of Police Commissioners, their 5-year terms by law. I mentioned before, the library board has to have the school district administrator. We have these alternate members who are only appointed for 1 year. We have student members. We have village board appointees to the Council on Aging, the EMS Commission, the Fire EMS Commission, the OSA Media Board. So if we do move forward with term limits, we just need some more direction on how you want those to be structured.
All right. And so Martin's recommendation in the packet is to not implement term limits. Do you want discussion, or somebody want to make a motion in a second, get it on the table? Yeah, Mike?
I'd like to make a motion that we basically stop pursuing term limits. There's too many issues with them.
Yeah. Okay, can we get a second? Amanda's second? Okay. Discussion?
So, yeah.
Yeah.
If I can.
Yeah, of
So I
course.
had Candy this last Friday send me the appointment listings for the last 20 years. And, you know, as it kind of relates to the diversity, equity, and inclusion that we're talking about earlier. And I'm going to pick on the Planning Commission slightly here, but on the Planning Commission, the last time that there was a female on the Planning Commission, and this isn't even looking at people of color or anything else, the last time there was a female on the Planning Commission other than the village board rep was 2002. So we're looking almost 20 years there. When I go back, when I look through the last 20 years of these appointments, I mean, there's several people that have held spots for well over a decade, some cases over 2 decades. So as we dismiss the term limits, I just want to throw that out there that, you know, I think we're kind of maintaining the status quo in favor of convenience and expediency.
Okay. Yeah, Mike?
Yeah, I agree we have a problem. I've noticed that on our various boards and commissions as well. It's pretty hard not to. I think what we really need to look at is maybe having the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee look at ways of reforming the process of appointing people to these commissions, and instead of term limiting them, look at making sure that we have diversity going in the recommendations from the village president into these committees.
Just find that term, I'm sorry, Kevin.
I have a question about how turnover happens now. You know, when does a new position come up? When somebody says, I don't want to be on this committee anymore? Is that how it happens
Here, I'll give you an
now?
example. So, I just appointed somebody to the Plan Commission, and the person had been on the Plan Commission for a while. He had just retired, and his wife was retired, and they wanted to travel. So he decided to take himself off. And I will say, as the person who had the pick, I would have loved to have a diverse pick. Unfortunately, it was just, there were I think two or three males. But
So the way that the appointment process works for most of our appointments is set by state law. So most of our established boards and commissions are statutory in nature, so the terms of, are set by state law. Like the Board of Police Commissioners is a 5-year term, the Plan Commission is a 3-year term, and so on and so forth. So there's 3 different ways that village boards can select officers for these bodies. There is just a straight up appointment by the village president. That individual just makes the appointment without confirmation or anything. The way that we do it, and for most instances in this community, is appointment by village president, confirmation by the village board. So the village board has the power to say, thanks, but no thanks, village president, we don't want that person. Or you can do a straight up all appointment by a village board. So I've seen it happen in one community with one body where they did it appointment by the body. And basically when there's an opening, everybody nominates whoever they want to nominate in a meeting, and then you basically go through a vote on who we want to select. And so that's also an option too that's available to the board.
My question is, how do openings happen? Not how are appointments made?
It's well, because the village president appoints, it's entirely that individual's power. So
it can be lifetime appointment?
No, it's term limited.
They're termed.
So they are term limited? That's I'm confused because I'm hearing they're 5-year, there's 3-year.
So their terms are, so let's take the Plan Commission, for example. Planning Commission members have terms of 3 years. So an individual gets appointed, they serve for 3 years, their term ends. Then the village president has the option of, they could reappoint that individual, or they could appoint somebody else at their discretion. So the individuals, for example, that are on the Plan Commission, I think Greg's been on there for 30 years or something like that. He's been longer than I've been alive. He's been appointed by successive village presidents throughout that whole duration on 3-year terms.
Got it.
So that's how that happens. And so the village president in our system, the way that we have it set up here, is that individual holds all the appointment power. So if that individual wants to run a process, an application process, they can, which Randy does, I think most of the time since I've been here, you've ran an application process. But if Randy wants to just pick somebody off the street at his discretion to appoint, he can do that. And then the check and balance is the village board has the confirmation power and can say, no, we don't want that individual, or yes, we accept that individual.
That wouldn't be my style. So typically what I do too, since I've been president, is I always get somebody, at least one other person. Typically I've been having Martin and maybe the chair of the, so that it's fair, that everybody sort of gets input, so it's not just me, because I don't want it to just be me. I want to get other opinions as well. That's the way I do it. I don't know how it's been done previously, but and I want it to be a fair process.
In all honesty, though, it could be a politically awkward situation to take someone off if they're doing a good job. You don't want it to look like
No.
there's been any problems. And I think a lot of village presidents in the past, you know, have been reluctant to take someone who's been on a committee for 20 years and say, okay, you're done. You know, that's.
And Amanda, I would say for me, I would not, if there was a problem, I wouldn't have an issue with
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Yeah.
So,
So then I have a follow-up question, because it seems that the committees that we're forming now, the ad hoc committees that we're forming now, we are saying that there's a certain number of year term, and then people would be reappointed, or somebody new would be appointed.
Yeah, the Diversity, Equity, Inclusion Committee was drafted with term limits. So an individual could be appointed to a 3-year term 3 times to serve a maximum of 9 years.
Got it.
Then they would have, they could go on a 1-year break, basically, and then then they'd be re-eligible to be reappointed if the village president and board approved it.
All right, so let's go back to what's on the table. So we do have a motion and a second to not implement term limits. Okay, any other discussion? We'll take a vote on this.
Well,
Yeah,
I
Amanda?
was just gonna say, I think the, you know, planning commission, for example, that there's been people on there a long time, and that's not to say they're doing a poor job or anything, but if we want fresh eyes, I could see it, I could justify it for that committee, and if there's any other committees that people have problems with, but most of the other committees that I've been on, I haven't seen that. They have like a natural turnover, and it hasn't been an issue. So maybe we could discuss doing it for a committee. I don't know. Just throwing it
Yeah, I
out
mean,
there.
I'd be definitely open to looking at it committee by committee if you want. And, yeah, and I agree, over the last 20 years, when I was looking through that, I was surprised by the turnover, particularly with police commission, had a fair amount of turnover that I was surprised by, given that Maynard was on there for 20-plus years. I just assumed that a lot of them had been. There was, I think, 1 or 2 longtime members, but I'm certainly open to looking at just a couple of committees to maybe set some term limits, because, I mean, I would like to see the boards a little bit more representative of the community at large, rather than, and that's not to say that any of them are not doing a good job, but you don't know what's out there until we look.
Yeah, Mike?
Well, to my mind, the biggest nut to crack here is the planning commission, where you've had a number of people that have been on for a good period of time. But the downside to me of putting term limits on them, I mean, I can see the benefits long-term of having, term limits, but if we applied term limits, as I raised before at a previous meeting, if we applied term limits to the planning commission, most of our institutional knowledge will be out the door the next time that they come up for reappointment, because, the solution that was raised when I mentioned that objection was, well, we'll grandfather them in, and, when they get off, then we'll start the term limits. But the problem with that is that's really the committee that needs term limits in terms of membership. So I don't know that the approach that we were taking on term limits up till now really addresses the real issue. And with these added complexities, I don't know that it's worth it.
All right,
I don't know
let's.
that it'll resolve it.
All right, let's vote on, let's get a vote on this.
I'd
Corinne,
like to
quick
offer
one?
a friendly amendment that as things as situations come up, that we look at them individually. Does that perhaps address
Yeah, that's
what we're
fine.
talking
Or-
about?
I mean, if you got a better motion, I'm happy to
don't
take
have a
mine
better
off table. And
I mean, we're just saying we're gonna drop it for now. We're not saying we're dropping it forever. We can always bring it up
Mhm.
again, right? So.
And it's kind of hard to, because the village president is his own office, so it's hard for the village board to make a motion here and direct the village president to do something, because that individual does not have to do that. So that's hard to legislate that way. The other option is the village board can take over control of nominations, but that comes with its own issues as well.
Yeah, I don't.
Well, and we can also see how we're gonna be coming up on a reorg meeting in a couple months as well, and you can see how the appointments come forth too. We can make changes at that time as well.
Mike, if I could, just make a motion to table this until after the organizational meeting next time, or in April.
I'm fine tabling it, and we'll come back and just have the whole discussion then.
The taking that power away from the village president is not a can of worms that I would
Yeah.
want to even consider opening, so I think just tabling it for now might be the best course of action.
Yeah, I'm not, tell you the truth, Derek, I'm not happy with any of the solutions here, so I'm fine tabling it.
So how about the second, Amanda, you second, you're okay with tabling?
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
Okay, all right. We don't need, do we need to vote?
You have to
Sure.
table it to a specific, it's not really tabling, we're just setting it to a specific date, because you have to do that.
And vote on it?
So you wanna, so after the reorg meeting, so that would be the April 18th meeting? So, table till then?
Okay, we'll do that. You don't need to vote?
I would vote on it.
You want to vote? Okay, so we need a motion and a second, table it until April 18th. Derek and Carleen, any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. All right, so we're on to 10, new business. Items are for discussion, possible action. 10A is review preliminary information for establishing permanent conservancy on properties east, North Alpine Parkway, excluding planned library site. Martin did a nice memo too for us in the packet. Actually, you want to just?
Yeah, sure, I can just.
Yeah.
So, yeah, if you had a chance to read my memo, you can kind of see some of the considerations that we'll have to account for if we want to move forward with the permanent conservancy. I think the first thing that we just need to wait on is letting the library project get a little bit farther along. As you can see, they're kind of planning on that blue area there being the library siting area, which of course would put it right in the center of two parcels. So what we're going to have to do is to reconfigure those lot lines as we get into this process a little bit more. Once we do that, then we'll have a clearly defined property that we can say, this could be conservancy. Now we'll have to talk a little bit about comp plan amendments and some other things, but I think once we get past this initial couple months of library design, we can start talking about that.
Okay. Yeah, Amanda?
Yeah, I just wanted to point out too that in the idea that what I envisioned for this land was having the library there, but also allowing room for future expansion, because that's one of the things. So we'd want to kind of see how the building is, where it would sit on the land, and how it might expand in the future before we decide what we're going to give to the rest of the conservancy.
Yeah, the library boards have kind of unique powers too under state law, and once the village designates a chunk of land or a building to the library, it literally becomes the library's control. So you kind of lose control of that to a certain degree. So we want to make sure that we define what this is going to look like and have proper legal descriptions for everything.
So like we'd cede the chunk for future expansion also to the library at the same time?
Yeah, I would imagine what we'll do is we'll carve out a property that's just for the library, and it'll obviously have the building and the immediate grounds and probably some area for future expansion as well.
Okay.
Yeah, Carleen?
This is a question for Jennifer. In the conceptual drawings, as I understand it, at this point, expansion was included in that blue area, right?
Yeah, so the blue area shifted slightly. We're trying to optimize distance from the wetlands and optimize funding, so minimize the amount of money we're spending on moving soil. So that's why we're looking at shifting it slightly, just to get the best possible location moving forward. But yeah, whatever we do, like Martin said, we'll kind of carve out a boundary that's mutually agreeable between the village and the library that would include the library needs now, and then room for future expansion so that site can host us for as long as we possibly can do that responsibly.
Okay. I mean, I think it makes sense, what, yeah. Mike?
Yeah, as I look at that map up there, and, or the photograph up there, and where the library is gonna be put, more or less, we're going to have to open up the comprehensive plan and amend that, and the zoning and everything else to even get the library sited in that spot. If that's the case, then when we reopen the comprehensive plan, I'd really also like to reopen it to incorporate all of the remaining land into the park at that point.
Yeah, that'll be part of the conversation regardless, because of the rearrangement of the parcel lines. We'll have to sort of designate what's remaining of those, the West Side Park parcels as either institutional use or park use. The comprehensive plan doesn't necessarily designate an area to be, active or passive park, so like a JC Park has the same designation in our comprehensive plan as Lerner Park. So an actual like conservation easement, something like that would be an additional step
Correct.
beyond the comprehensive plan amendment process. So I don't think it will be quite as complicated as we think it'll be. It'll just be, this is the library site, an institutional use. Everything else is park. What kind of park that needs to be in the future, that'll be a separate conversation.
Okay.
And with that in mind, I don't know if this takes a motion or not, but can we refer to the Parks Board to start looking at what their thoughts are regarding making this a conservancy and the use of that as a passive recreation park?
Shaking
I'd
said
make a
yes.
motion.
Yep.
So I'd like to make that as a motion then, that this get referred to the idea of a conservancy and designating this park for passive activities, if hiking and biking can be considered passive, be referred to the Parks Board.
Okay, Carleen, you were second?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Any other discussion? Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. That's, Martin, all we need, or do we need?
Yeah, oh, that's
Okay.
it, that's it.
Okay. All right, we're on to 10B. Provide southeast expansion planning information for village board review and future discussion. I think there was information in the packet, kind of where you all are aware, we've been talking about this forever. One thing I would maybe suggest that we could do tonight, if we're in agreement, is to let village staff, we mentioned the property owners, and we're gonna need to find out, in fact, are they still interested in annexation and that, and we give the staff some authority to check into that, if we're gonna go forward. So I might make that suggestion, that we let them, contact them and see if they're still interested in annexing. But other discussion on this? Yeah, Carleen, and then Mike?
So I can't help but notice that we're talking about wetlands again. And from the, the drawing under number 3 with the designations there, and also that the corner, the northeast area there is also Badfish Creek. So I'm just putting it out there that these things are things that I foresee coming up. I'll just put it that way.
Yep.
For consideration.
Randy,
Yeah,
just
please.
to take a step back, so we knew that there would be a lot on your plate tonight on this agenda, so I am actually planning for a future agenda to go through kind of just a summary presentation of the information that's presented here, and hopefully in the meantime you guys can do a little bit of reading, but I can provide some background on the conversations we've been having the last couple of years with the property owner, some of the planning for this area, some of those questions, Carleen, that we still have that we would want to have answered before kind of going further down the road and working on what we think these this land could be used for, how much land is actually usable, in a responsible way. So,
So at least you want us to, my suggestion, hold off on that
yeah, I think
until
this is
you have
just
more
for your information right
discussion?
now,
Okay.
And then I'll be doing a little bit more of a overview
All right.
presentation, just didn't wanna
Yeah.
slam you with information tonight.
Okay.
It's a lot.
I just wanted to put it out there that I'm noticing that.
Yeah,
And
well,
like it said on the summary, that's still something that we haven't gotten done yet with our engineer. The property owner actually had a wetland delineation done in, the fall of 2020, I think?
Or just this last year, I think.
Yeah.
21.
So, and they actually have not shared that information with us, likely because there was more wetlands than they anticipated. So, there's still a lot of pieces to kind of fill in here, but we'll ultimately probably be looking for, the board, blessing to just move the conversation forward with the property owner and see, what other things we can look into, answer if there's certain, development opportunities or funding opportunities that we want to take advantage of.
Yeah, I think,
okay.
I think, yeah, Randy, you kind of hit on, I think, what we're kind of looking for here, and we can talk about it at a future meeting, but we just don't, as staff, we just don't want to be in a position where, we're spending time working
And
on
money
this.
and it's a
money,
no.
And
Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
not a significant amount of support at the board level, and when we come with something and you wonder why we're working on this, so, we just want
Yeah.
to get to a place where we understand that this is something that everybody knows that we're working on and we're moving
Yep.
forward with, and there's a reasonable expectation that something may transpire here.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, and as Lee said, we were gonna have a presentation tonight, but
All right.
it's been quite
We
an
can do
agenda,
that.
so.
Yep. Mike, did I see your hand up?
Yeah, mine was up.
Okay.
I support jumping 14 a lot. I think that our plan of continuing to go west raises all sorts of issues with transportation within the village that are resolved or largely resolved if we go on the other side of 14 with 138 and 14 both there. The only concern that I had, and there's plenty of time to discuss it, so I'm not gonna raise much on it tonight, is when I saw TIF as a financing mechanism for this, I was greatly concerned that we were going to sequester large amounts of tax base inside of a TIF for 30 years, which would be a heck of a burden on the rest of the taxpayers, particularly if a good chunk of that land that we're sequestering ends up becoming residential, and we have to carry fire, EMS, school, and all the other services that we provide, or the village provides, are going to be handled by the other taxpayers in the village for 30 years while the funds of the TIF are tied up. So that's my only concern is how this gets financed.
Okay. Yeah, Amanda?
I want to thank you for talking specifically about affordable housing, because my concern of jumping 14 is always the otherizing of people in different socioeconomic groups and things, but I could see it as part of a plan that includes a whole bunch of different types of housing, so I appreciate you addressing that in the plan. I did read on that. I think that I can do, especially in light of forming the transportation committee and, having ways for people to get around that would equalize things, so.
Okay.
that was it.
So more discussion
Yeah.
to come on this, okay? Let's finish, almost done. 10C, future agenda items. Anybody? Yeah, Mike?
Yeah, to follow up on what Jerry had brought up earlier and at a previous meeting, I want to be sure that before we go down the route of getting a developer for 249 North Main Street, that we have a discussion about what the type of development is appropriate for that community in that area. Although I realize we want to get moving on things, there's, in the 139-year, history of the village, that land has been on the tax rolls for maybe 4 of it. So delaying a few more months or whatever to have a discussion and really understand what the community wants is much better in my mind than rushing it and, making a buck a couple months earlier.
Okay.
Second thing I wanted to bring up was I know, Jeff, you and I had discussed some of what came up in the Badfish Creek report tonight. Can we get a discussion, though, for the board as a whole and the village on what the plans are for treatment of E. coli and the, alternatives as we develop a new sewer plant?
We can always discuss that, absolutely. I mean, and that's under whether you want to do that in a Public Works Committee meeting or whether you want to do it in a village board meeting. But I will tell you, it is part of it's probably coming more in our plan than it ever has been.
Yeah, well, I guess I would like to see it in a public board meeting now that this is all kind of been televised to the community.
Great.
To realize that it is in the plans to deal with it, but also if there's any ways that we can move some of this up to deal with it earlier.
I mean, it really comes down to the board. If the board makes that direction and wants to implement that, then if that's the direction to do that, then we would do that, so.
Can I
Yeah,
address that?
yeah, Amanda.
So I'm on the Public Works Committee, and that is something that we have talked about. I feel like we need to use our committee systems more. I would love to have it start at Public Works, because then it will eventually get to the board and people can ask their questions, but, I think that's best done at the committee, and since we haven't met since pre-COVID, I would like to have a meeting. Let's do some work again and start there, if that's all right with you.
So you'll get a schedule?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
All right.
I'm looking at March, because normally it's the end of the month, and we already canceled February, so can we get that for March? Martin's nodding. so.
Sure. All right, anybody else? All right, we're on to 11. Let's have adjournment. Let's have a motion. Jerry, second? Okay, Carleen? All right, we're adjourned. Boom.